dear grade 7 learners. I am teacher SHEILA and I am so happy to welcome you for another fun-filled learning experience. So what are you waiting for? Come and join me for an exciting road trip for you to learn English. Before we get started, grab your self-learning module 2, secure your answer sheets and ballpen, make sure that you are at your most convenient area, get ready and pay attention in our lesson. In today's journey, your attention will be focused on the interpersonal communication.
By the end of this video lesson, you should have been able to define what interpersonal communication is, identify interpersonal communication processes, nature and elements, and use variety of strategies for an effective interpersonal communication.
To begin, let's assess yourself by answering each item that follows. Get your pens and paper and try to answer each item with yes or no.
When talking to someone, do you use appropriate body language to show you are listening? Say eye contact or nod head? Second question. When talking to someone, do you listen to the speaker without interrupting? Third question. When talking to someone, do you repeat what the speaker said or ask questions to make sure you have understood correctly? Fourth question. When talking to someone, do you avoid being distracted by noises, mobile phones, or by what other people are doing? Fifth question. When talking to someone, do you avoid being distracted by the mannerisms, speaking style, clothing of the person speaking?
Did you answer yes to most of the questions? If yes, you could consider yourself a good communicator. In this lesson, your ability to listen, to speak, discuss, and participate in meaningful conversations will be further developed. You will also learn why effective communication is important in our lives. So, what does it mean by the term interpersonal communication?
Interpersonal communication is the process by which people exchange information through verbal and nonverbal messages. It often includes face-to-face exchange of information in a form of voice, facial expressions, body language, body posture, body movements, and eye contact. These are the nature of communication. First, communication is a process. Second, communication occurs between two or more people, the speaker and the receiver. Lastly, communication can be expressed through written or spoken words, actions, or both spoken words and nonverbal actions at the same time. How does the communication process works? In order to successfully communicate, it is important to understand how the process works. Here are the 7 steps in the communication process. First, the sender develops an idea to be sent. The beginning of the communication process involves the sender creating an idea that they plan to send to another person or group of people. Essentially, they are planning the overall subject matter or information they want to transmit. Second, the sender encodes the message. Once the sender develops an idea, they translate it into a form that can be transmitted to someone else. This means they transform the thoughts of the information they want to send into a certain format. For example, if you are writing a letter, you'll translate your idea into words. The message can also be nonverbal, oral, or symbolic. Third, the sender selects the channel of communication that will be used. The sender decides how the message will be sent. This involves selecting the most suitable medium for the message they're relaying. Some communication mediums include speaking, writing, electronic transmission, or nonverbal communication. If you're communicating at work, make sure to select the proper and most professional channel of communication. Fourth, the message travels over the channel of communication. After the medium is chosen, the message then begins the process of transmission. The exact process of this will depend on the selected medium. Next, the message is received by the recipient. This step in the communication process is done by hearing the message, seeing it, feeling it, or another form of perception. Next, the receiver then decodes the sender's message. In other words, they interpret it and convert it into a thought. After they've done this, they analyze the message and attempt to understand it. The communication process is performed effectively when the sender and receiver have the same meaning for the transmitted message. The receiver decodes the message. In other words, they interpret it and convert it into a thought. After they've done this, they analyze the message and attempt to understand it. The communication process is performed effectively when the sender and receiver have the same meaning for the transmitted message. Lastly, unless it's a one-way communication, the receiver will provide feedback in the form of a reply to the original sender of the message. Feedback provides the recipient with the ability to ensure the sender that their message was properly received and interpreted. Between two people, this is two-way communication. These are the elements of interpersonal communication. First, the communicators. Interpersonal communication involves at least two people exchanging messages face-to-face. So, while one person is talking, the other should be listening while nodding, smiling, responding appropriately to the information conveyed. Second, the message. For two people to communicate, there must be an exchange of messages or information. The message can be nonverbal or verbal. The emotional attitude you portray can distort or make your message clearer. Third, feedback. Feedback is an essential interpersonal communication because it portrays what the receiver understood. Fourth, context. Context is about the environmental factors that influence the outcome of communication. This includes where the discussion is taking place and the relationship between the message, sender, and receiver. Fifth, channel of communication. Channel is the means through which the message is conveyed. For example, during face-to-face interpersonal communication, you can pass a message through your voice and your eyes. So, the channel of communication affects the interaction. Lastly, the noise. Noise is anything that disfigures the message. So, if you are relaying a message and you are using jargons or referring to cultural differences, you are creating noise. Interpersonal communication should flow. Therefore, you have to communicate efficiently without using unrelated details to your messages and without using difficult words. These are the characteristics of effective communication. First, effective communication requires the message to be clear and concise, accurate, relevant to the needs of the receiver, timely, meaningful, and applicable to the situation. Second, effective communication requires the sender to know the subject well, be interested in the subject, know the audience members and establish a rapport with them, speak at the level of the receiver, and choose an appropriate communication channel. Third, the channel should be appropriate, affordable, and appealing. Lastly, the receiver should be aware, interested, and willing to accept the message. Listen attentively, understand the value of the message, and provide feedback.
There you have it. At this point, let us see how well you understood the discussion through our final challenge. Are your pens and paper ready? Let's begin!
Which statement about nonverbal communication is correct? Letter A, it is easy for a nurse to judge the meaning of a client's facial expression. Letter B, the nurse's verbal messages should be reinforced by nonverbal cues. Letter C, the physical appearance of the nurse rarely influences nurse-client interaction. And letter D, words convey meanings that are usually more significant than nonverbal communication. Which of the following statements by the nurse could be considered false reassurance to the client? Letter A, I understand your concern about the surgery, but at your age, there's nothing to worry about. Letter B, I know it must be frightening to be in the hospital, but you'll receive the care you need. Letter C, it's a difficult time for you, but be assured that I'm willing to listen to anything you have to say. Letter D, no, I've never lost a close relative to cancer, but I can understand how difficult it must be for you. Waving is what type of communication? Letter A, gestures. Letter B, body language. Letter C, sign language. Or letter D, body position.
Did you enjoy the activity? That's awesome! How about your scores? Did you get good scores? Great! Now, it's time for a recap.
Interpersonal communication is the exchange of information among people. Information can include thoughts, ideas, feelings, and more. This communication occurs both verbally, with words, and non-verbally, encompassing facial expressions, gestures, body language, and tone of voice. An effective verbal communicator clarifies, listens, encourages empathically, acknowledges, restates, or repeats, while an effective nonverbal communicator relaxes, opens up, leans toward the other person, establishes eye contact, and shows appropriate facial expressions.
Well, that wraps up our lesson for this week. I hope you had fun from our learning road trip through this video lesson. Now, you're all set to complete the exercises in your self-learning module for Quarter 4, Week 2. Again, this is Teacher Sheila reminding you to stay home, stay safe, and stay positive. Goodbye!